transportation issues. Today's topic of discussion is, of course, MARTA and building public support for transit in the Metro Atlanta region, and some of the changes that have occurred at MARTA over the past few years. Before we get started, a little housekeeping. We would love to get some questions from those of you that are participating. If you have any questions, just type those questions in. We'll be able to read those here, and at the end we hope to have some time to go through those questions. You don't have to wait to the end, however. If you have a question while you're thinking about it, go ahead and type that in. That'll put you ahead of everybody else in the queue, and we'll be able to get to your question sooner. You won't have to worry about remembering what your question was at the end of the presentation. We are honored to have with us today Keith Parker, the Executive Director, General Manager, Chief Executive Officer of the Metropolitan Atlanta Regional Transit Authority, or MARTA. Keith has an extensive biography, which I'm sure everybody is very familiar with, and it is an honor to have him with us today as part of the rest of our honorable lineup for our various webinar series. With that, without any further ado, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Keith Parker.
Good afternoon. I hope all are doing well. This is an honor for me to have the opportunity to come chat with you about what's happening at the nation's 9th largest transit system and one of the true economic generators for the Atlanta region, state of Georgia, and the entire Southeast. So what we want to do today is just have a conversation where I'll share some thoughts and information with you about what's happening at your transit system, and then hopefully have some time left over at the end to answer any questions that you may have, and also to hear your suggestions and ideas. So we'll start by mentioning where things stand today. And hopefully you can follow along on our slides. But as we think about congestion, we don't like to think about it just as a situation that impacts Atlanta, but we'd like to think about it even on a global scale. And when we look at the cost of congestion, the cost of gridlock over the next couple of decades, we see that around the world it's in the billions of dollars, but this is one area that the United States leads quite handily, and that the cost of congestion, by some estimates, will approach $3 trillion in this country over the next couple of decades. So what do we want to do about it here? And one of the major things we want is to really change the tenor of the conversation, to make people stop thinking about mass transit as something other people do or something you do when it's not in the mainstream, but instead make mass transit and public transit the norm. All of us can remember just a couple of years ago when this region was faced by a significant challenge. This is a picture of Snowmageddon. And one of the things we were proud of at MARTA was that when much of the region was stopped or had major difficulty, we kept operating 24 hours a day. And we carried hundreds of thousands of people during that period, many of whom were riding for the very, very first time using MARTA. And we wanted to capitalize off that experience. So again, to get people thinking about mass transit, not just when the emergency occurs, not just when the car breaks down, but also on their daily commute, on their trips to the hospital or trips for recreation, just thinking about us as the norm, as the mainstream. So we are a transit system truly in transformation, and any group in transformation really wants to start to look at ways it can improve itself. And at MARTA, we're certainly in that mode. When we think about the system going back just a few years, we saw a transit system really on the verge of crisis, where we had, unfortunately, we're in a situation where the agency had lost, back in fiscal year 2011, $35 million. And the projections from a study done by KPM indicated that we would continue to lose $25 to $33 million every year until the agency was fiscally bankrupt, basically about 1 year from now. So what we were able to do was, as I came in December of 2012, we created a very strong team, holding some people over who were here when I arrived, as well as bringing in some folks from around the country, some of the top talented transit minds from around the nation. And we started on a major reform effort. And because of these reforms, we now have a much better outlook. In fact, when we look at fiscal 11, where we had a $35 million decrease, we just closed to year 15, and we had a $35 million surplus, so a complete mirror of what happened just a few years ago. And because of a number of major reforms we've made, you look at this red line, this is where we were going, the $25 to $33 million worth of losses, which would have had us in a situation where all of our budget reserves would have been completely exhausted and the agency would have been in a state of insolvency. Instead, we are proud to report that closing out fiscal 15, we have a budgetary surplus of just over $200 million, so a much stronger position than what we found ourselves just a little while ago. We have to do a number of other things to make the transit system more appealing to the customer, to the customers we already have, while also attracting new people. So we've been building a better MARTA by focusing on employees, on customers, and just getting better at what we do on a daily basis. We took many of those savings that we recognized by going through the fiscal reforms and invested back into our services. We took those, and we took that message to Wall Street back last spring, and we were pretty pleased to report that based on the information we shared with them and just the growing positive outlook, we received a credit upgrade. We also really focused in on safety, and MARTA, thankfully, has continually been one of the more safe transit systems in the country. And this is data that was just released. This includes through the fiscal year of 2014. So when you compare MARTA with the other top 10 transit authorities in the nation, you see we finished second from the top with the fewest number of Part 1 crimes in the entire country. People will sometimes have this perception that the transit system is not a safe, secure place. Again, I'm pleased to report that we are amongst the very safest in the entire nation. We also recognize to do more to improve the overall quality of customer experience. Back during the recessionary periods, MARTA raised fares pretty much more than any other transit system in the nation, while also cutting 1/3 of all the bus routes, completely eliminating them, and dramatically increasing the amount of time it took to catch trains. So we've added service and thankfully not raised fares in the last 3 to 4 years. And as a result, we're beginning to see some improvements, significant improvements on our ridership. But very importantly as well is the relationships we've begun to build both in the business community as well as with our customer base, and then very importantly with our political friends. MARTA has had a historically difficult relationship with the state legislature, and we're pleased to report that because of many of the reforms we've made, and I think doing a better job of communicating, we were able to sit with Governor Deal earlier this year as he signed historic legislation that gave MARTA more flexibility in running its business and being able to do more partnerships with private sector groups, and just overall greater flexibility to run our transit system the way most major transit authorities are run throughout the country. So this is a great picture of the governor signing the most recent MARTA Act legislation with many other legislators and MARTA board members. As we take a historical perspective on the transit system, we do, and we're very proud of the fact that MARTA is now seeing great improvements in its overall customer satisfaction. This is a chart that has a number of different things on it, but it goes back to the Olympic period through present day. And one of the things we're seeing is that our customer satisfaction is on the rise, significantly on the rise. In fact, when we polled our customers recently, they indicated that they are more pleased now with our station agents, with bus drivers, with cleanliness and that sort of thing than they have been in about a decade. And just as importantly, the customer dissatisfaction is going down precipitously. So we are seeing a rising tide of people pleased with the MARTA service, while a lessening of the folks who are. So what's next? We've seen improvements in our customer performance, very significant improvements in our finances, and then just as importantly, we are seeing performance from a standpoint of MARTA trying to give back and being poised to take on that next generation of customers and that next generation of challenges. So what is next for the transit system? Well, we've set a vision that we use the acronym SEAT, Service, Economy, and I'll talk a bit about each one of those over the next few minutes. On the service side, we're going to continue to really broadcast the fact that the Atlanta is very fortunate to have the best airport transit partnership in the entire country. And this is just not the transit CEO bragging. This is an effort that's looked at every 3 years or so by a third-party group, and they actually measure a number of different factors. And one of the great things that you know here is that you can go from baggage claim to the rail platform in less than 3 minutes and be downtown Atlanta 16 minutes later for $2.50. That's the best in the country, third best in the entire world, and it's something we're going to continue to hype over the coming months and years. MARTA is making other partnerships to get more and more people as customers, and also to, again, just to give an overall great experience. So you'll now see in a number of our transit stations bicycle kiosks where you can make repairs, pump up your tires, straighten out a spoke, and a whole host of things. And this is just the beginning of the partnership we're having with the biking community. We are going to dramatically improve the way we provide bus service. When we've done customer service surveys, what we find is there's a significant difference between how people feel about the bus service and the rail service, and a decided gap between folks who will ride the rail system and who will ride the bus. We look to eliminate those gaps. We're looking to eliminate those gaps by making the bus system more customer-friendly, easier to use, less transfers, and to go more places than where we currently serve, and very importantly, better frequency, more nighttime service, more weekend service. So you'll be seeing those improvements coming over the next calendar year. But MARTA also recognizes that when we were formed, there was a great vision for this agency, and MARTA came along around the same time as San Francisco, as the transit systems in San Francisco and Washington, D.C. All were envisioned as 100-mile subway systems. And to their credit, the San Francisco and the Washington, D.C. systems have already achieved their 100-mile visions. We are only halfway there at MARTA. So one of the things we will be talking about at great length over the next few months is our effort to significantly expand the rail system to the tune of about $8 billion worth of improvements with rail expansion to the north and as well to the CDC, and bus rapid transit and rail connecting South DeKalb with the city of Atlanta. So these are major, big, multi-billion-dollar projects that we will be working with the state legislature and local governments with over the coming months. But one of the projects that certainly has gotten a great deal of attention that's really helping to push economic development is our transit-oriented development program. That's where we use our MARTA train stations primarily to partner with the private sector to create great new opportunities, where we want to build ridership, create new revenues, and help strengthen the region's overall planning and so forth. And when done right, we expect to see neighborhoods revitalized, we expect to see job creation, and very importantly, we expect to give this. So to give you an example of what we're doing, this is a picture of how the Brookhaven station looks today. Brookhaven has turned out to be an area of great potential for us. So we sent out a request for proposals and got back an incredible array of ideas about how we could work with the private sector to redevelop this area. And what we got back was the group who we've selected, who we're going to work with, they're going to build a tremendous new mixed-use community that will look very similar to what we have here. So replacing just those parking spaces with a new high-rise luxury hotel, new retail, over somewhere between 500 and 700 new apartments and condo units that are at market rate, while also reserving a few for lower wealth customers and so forth. In addition, we'll be helping to build a new library in that area, great new open space. So these are the types of opportunities we're looking to take advantage of and move forward on over the coming years. And we expect this development to begin in earnest sometime next year, and then just see more and more improvements in the coming 2 to 3 years. This is our Edgewood Candler Park station, and another one we're going to be partnering with Columbia Ventures, and they will be building a whole host of new apartments and condo units, again, more open space plus some retail, and again, both market rate and other housing that gives us an opportunity, again, to help shape a neighborhood in some really special ways. This is a rendering of another partnership we've entered into with State Farm. This is our Dunwoody Rail Station, and State Farm will be, well, their prerequisite when they were looking for a place to put their regional headquarters, they said they had to be at a MARTA station. So they are going to build 2.2 million square feet of office right here at our Dunwoody station. And this is going to create a great new opportunity for people who've never used MARTA before to try us out, and also creating an even better and more pleasant environment for our existing customers. MARTA's also been involved in a number of big ticket items in terms of bringing new and different types of businesses to this region. We were at the table when some of the negotiations were being had to bring the Mercedes-Benz from New Jersey and bringing their corporate headquarters here to the Atlanta market. And that's just one of a few. NCR bringing its corporate headquarters to downtown Atlanta, Casa Permanente announcing that they would bring about 900 to 1,000 new jobs, paying in excess of $100,000 to downtown. And they mentioned very specifically they're doing this because they needed to be near a MARTA station. And again, we think this is just the beginning of MARTA being as one of the true economic generators in our region. But also on the small tech side, and we're going to talk about some high-tech innovations in just a moment, but as we go out, we want to make sure our stations are as customer-friendly as possible. So this is a picture of our West End transit station. We surveyed our customers around the station and asked, well, what types of amenities would you like to see? And the highest ranking, they said they'd like to have fresh produce at or near the station. So we partnered with the Food Bank and Food Oasis, and they have farmers markets that pop up on every Friday afternoon. So rather than a kid picking up a soda pop and a candy bar at the MARTA station, he can now get a fresh smoothie and a peach or some fresh breads. And what's great about this partnership is that almost all the produce is actually grown by local farmers right in that West End area. So it's a great new concept, and we expect to expand it next year. MARTA is also going to be very intentional about public art. I'll be going to our Board of Trustees with an idea of how we can make art a memorable piece of all the different MARTA stations of functional art at the Charlotte Rail. And so we will be coming out with a full-scale art program that we'll be introducing over the next few months, and then hoping to hit implementation sometime next year. We're very excited about this, and I'm getting a lot of phone calls from people who have some good ideas about how to move forward on this project. MARTA is also going to be using technology to really become one of the cutting-edge transit agencies around the country. This looks pretty boring. This is actually a bathroom, but this is a bathroom at our Lindbergh station. It's truly a SMARTA bathroom. It is one of the most high-tech you will find anywhere in the nation. So rather than have an attendant, a live attendant who's there in front of you who would open the door and let you use the restroom, instead we have many of our restrooms now automated. And so you come to the restroom, you would let the door know that you want to enter. The door would open automatically for you. Once you're in there, you have a certain amount of time to use the facilities. If you take too long, the facility will start to talk to you and ask you, are you okay? And if you need help, the restroom itself could actually call the authorities and have an ambulance pick you up. If you can't tell by the picture, this restroom is almost vandal-proof. It is hardened to the point where ink and paint and that sort of thing would be very difficult to stain those walls. So it's a very high-tech way to bring an amenity that many of our customers still say they need and want us to bring back to some of the stations that have gone without restrooms for a few years now. In addition, MARTA will be one of the pioneering agencies around the nation with what we call mobile payments. That's where you'll be able to use your cell phone to purchase your fare media and use it to get on buses, get on the trains, pay and reload them, all from the comfort of your own home or wherever you may be. This is another effort to speed along things as you're using the transit system. MARTA is also bringing Wi-Fi and cellular connectivity throughout the entire transit system. So on a few dozen buses already, we've implemented this pilot project. Within the next year, we will have Wi-Fi on every bus and every train. And then, very exciting, we are going to be one of the pioneers in the country with connected bus technology. And so we've got a big bus order that will go live very soon. And one of the things we're going to experiment with is the talking bus, if you will, where buses will talk to one another, and then with certain automobiles and even quite possibly with the street lights. This will help us reduce accidents, find more efficient routes to get around, and again, give the customer something new and different to improve the overall customer experience. For those of you who wonder how you can help and how you can be more engaged with the MARTA of tomorrow, we would like to introduce to you the MARTA Army. This is a grassroots effort that we stayed out of the way of folks who are trying to bring up new and different ways of making mass transit more pleasant and more pleasing to use as they navigate our system. So they've got ideas about how to improve our bus stops, how to improve service throughout the system, and very importantly, how customers can communicate with one another with their ideas and suggestions about how to improve MARTA. And with that, I think now start to take a few questions on Twitter at CEO MARTA, and let us know your ideas and follow me to hear the latest and greatest of happenings at your transit system.
Well, thank you, Keith. That is a tremendous presentation and certainly great insight into some of the changes that have been going on at MARTA. I think there's a wide public awareness that MARTA has turned around, that it's a successful organization, that it's a well-run organization, but I don't think there's a wide awareness of things, Wi-Fi and being able to use your phone for fares and transit-oriented development and some of these things that are definitely not probably most people's perception of the MARTA of a decade ago or so. So it's very exciting stuff. You mentioned earlier your speaking of change that over the 40 some odd year history of MARTA, that historically there has not been a warm and cuddly relationship between the General Assembly and MARTA. But during this legislative session, we saw pretty much every major leader, the lieutenant governor, the speaker of the House, the chairs of the Transportation Committee, singing the praises of transit and singing about the importance of MARTA as a component, not just of Georgia's transportation picture, but of its economic development picture. Can you maybe expand a little bit on the how and the why of how you think that relationship has changed with General Assembly and what that means for the future going forward for MARTA?
That's an excellent question. And when I came in, I did quite a bit of research about MARTA's historical relationships, and certainly one of the ones where there was a real opportunity for improvement was with the state legislature. So I remember very vividly my very first meeting with Governor Deal, and it was soon after I had arrived. And I remember going into the meeting and mentioning to the governor this would be the easiest meeting he would have all day long because I wasn't coming in to ask for anything. And that instead all we wanted was an opportunity to prove ourselves, that we would get our house in order before we would come to the legislature to ask for any funds, any new regulations, or any of those things. And said, just basically give me a year and then let's check back in and see how things are going. So I was pleased to report that after that first year we had eliminated a $33 million projected budget deficit and turned it into a $9 million surplus, that we had made great strides in improving service, that we had initiated our Ride with Respect campaign, where we effectively took a zero tolerance approach to what we were calling knucklehead behavior at the time, so that we really just started to suspend and expel people off the system who didn't behave themselves. And then we also made a real investment back into our employees. I promised our folks that if we balanced the budget and did things the right way, we would give them their first raises. Many of them had not had a raise in over a decade. And we promised we would give raises and bonuses to reflect the growing, improved performance of our folks. And so when that year was up, I was able to go back through the state of MARTA and report back to our state legislature that we had made major improvements. And since that time, I would certainly say that the relationship.
Well, I think real tangible evidence of that is for 40 years, the state had never contributed financially to MARTA's operation since its founding. And in this 2015 legislative session, there was a $75 million bond package appropriated for transit, first time in our history. So it's not just words.
Mm-hmm. That's correct, and we feel good about the funds that we will be competing with the other 100 and some odd transit authorities around the state, and we will use those dollars well. And that's part of the message that I constantly want to send, not just to the state legislature, but to the business community, to neighborhood leaders, and to certainly our everyday customers. And that is, as MARTA grows, and I fully expect our transit system to grow, that we'll use fiscally conservative principles of making sure we spend less than we bring in, to make sure we invest in smart investments, that we'll use that same fiscal approach with any new dollars that we are trusted with.
It's tremendous. One of the other things that I think has changed with relative to MARTA and transit more generally is the perception of what transit does for a community and the growing realization. Of course, you highlighted State Farm and Mercedes and NCR and all of these huge economic development wins for the state that were a direct result of those employers being able to locate adjacent to transit. What do you think that sort of development, where transit is now an economic development tool to attract businesses and major employers and headquarters to our region, how do you think that changes MARTA's path going forward?
Well, I think what's happening is not just something that's an Atlanta phenomenon. It really is a nationwide phenomenon, and that's more and more people want a more urban lifestyle. Millennials and many families, particularly empty nesters, are moving back closer into town, and with it comes the need to get around easier. And one of the fascinating things that we've seen occur around this region is that just a few years ago, if you've gone into Buckhead, for example, at some of the condo and apartment units that were going up, there was no mention of MARTA during that time period. Now you go up to many of these places, and some of them are even under construction, and on the front page of their brochures, they're mentioning 1 block to the MARTA stop, 2 MARTA stop, great access to MARTA, which is now a major selling point for developments that we don't have a formal role in, and where we do have a formal role, like a State Farm or even like the new Mercedes-Benz Stadium that's going up. We're at the table, and they are working with us to make sure that once these amenities are built, that they are as transit friendly and transit customer friendly as possible. So it's a huge turnaround from the days when people would basically hide the fact that the MARTA station was nearby, and now it is one of the major selling points for some of their developments and some of their major projects.
And a huge driver of property values. I mean, just put in selfish kitchen table terms, folks who own homes or residences close to MARTA, they're seeing their property values increase at a higher rate than those who don't.
We don't think it's a coincidence, obviously, that our Brookhaven station and the Buckhead station are the 2 stations that have the highest per capita incomes around them of all the 38 MARTA stations. And so it's not a surprise that right around Buckhead you're seeing some incredible high-rise development occur. And then this Brookhaven transit-oriented development I mentioned a little bit earlier, it is our most lucrative so far, and it is our most far-reaching. So we think the fact that people of more affluence and so forth are looking at mass transit as a great amenity bodes very well for us, because we already know that people who may have fewer dollars available to them use mass transit in significant quantities, but to be a major player for all socioeconomic strata, I think that's a big change here in the Atlanta market.
Certainly a sea change. You also talked about the transit-oriented development. Of course, Lindbergh Station, anybody who remembers Lindbergh Station area 10, 15 years ago, that's a massive transformation. We've got a question from one of our listeners. As a resident of Sandtown, how can I take greater advantage of the airport options that MARTA has available?
Well, one of the things we're trying to do is make the service more customer friendly. So, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, we had this huge budget deficit, and we're able to turn it around and create some savings. And so one of the things we did was invest back into the service. The airport service now is, again, amongst the best in the world. So you can get to the airport with trains leaving about every 5 minutes. So for $2.50, I'll repeat that, for $2.50, you can take a train that's coming about every 5 minutes and be downtown Atlanta 16 minutes later. When you look at that access and compare that to Washington, D.C., to San Francisco, to Chicago, and New York, and the reason why I say those cities is I've visited all of them in the last couple of months, and I can tell you each one takes 3 times longer to get to access baggage claim and get to their rail platform than it does at MARTA. Each one of them at least 3 times longer. So that's an amenity that Atlantans need to take more and more advantage of.
You said we were number 2 in the world?
Number 3 in the world, number 2 in the nation, and I think at the next assessment we will be number 1 in the world because of these other improvements we've just made. Another thing that we feel great about is how we can get you to major venues. So we've had lots of meetings recently with the leadership of the Falcons. So I had a chance to sit with Arthur Blank and Rich McCabe, the owner and general and president of the Falcons, sat with them for several hours, in fact, and toured facilities and so on. And then recently had a meeting with the president of the Hawks. And in both of those, we've had great conversations about how they want to dramatically improve the number of people who use mass transit to get to their games. Rich McKay, you will see him out literally at every home game. He's riding MARTA, and he's tweeting out his experience in the whole works. Just the other day, the Coach Bud from the Hawks mentioned that he uses MARTA to get to practice. And I asked him just directly, well, does riding MARTA make him a better coach? And he said, absolutely, it allows him to focus on the games and not have to worry about parking and that sort of thing. And more fans will be using the service. So if you haven't used MARTA in recent times to get to a football game or to get to a basketball game, try us out. There's no better way, no cheaper way. Trains are running frequently, and you can't beat the price.
Maybe a great recruiting tool for the MARTA Army. Now, I think you said the MARTA Army is not an official MARTA entity or organization. It's a grassroots organization. But we do have a question from one of our listeners. Can you tell us more about how to get involved in the MARTA Army?
You actually can just Google MARTA Army, and their contact information will come up. And again, we try to maintain a bit of a distance from them because we want to remain a grassroots group. But they've come up with some great ideas. Again, some ways of improving our bus stops, ways of communicating better with our customer base, and you'll be hearing more and more about them. So yes, just Google their information, and you'll see contact info, and they will tell you how you can help.
So you can't confirm whether Rich is a general or an officer in the MARTA Army.
Right, I can't confirm or deny.
All right, we've got another question. Did MARTA play a part in the new development called High Street that will break ground in Dunwoody?
I think part of what's happening all around, particularly Dunwoody, is that it's just super high growth and very, very smart about their planning. But if you talk to the leadership in a number of those northern towns, what they're telling you is that they are using mass transit as a prerequisite for discussions with major developers because they want to make sure that these developers have well thought out ideas of how they're going to get people in and around their businesses. So as Mayor Davis told me when I first moved here, I guess it's almost 3 years ago now, he told me Dunwoody is poised to become the center of the universe. And I sort of laughed when he mentioned that. But when you look at the development that's occurred around that MARTA station and just Dunwoody itself, with literally millions of square feet of new office and residential and new retail and so forth, he may have not been that far off. That the types of growth is just really phenomenal. And Dunwoody and Sandy Springs have the distinction of having 3 MARTA stations within about a 1.5 to 2 mile radius. And all around those stations, we are beginning to see great involvement, great improvement. So even on the developments that we don't have a direct, let's cut a deal with MARTA type of a relationship, we are at the table theoretically or having many of our principles introduced through the leadership of those towns and cities.
And just your physical presence and proximity is a driver of the developers, the private market decision to make this development.
No question. The fact that this Brookhaven development took off the way it did with the amount of energy. We had 48 different developers propose in some way or another on that project. So, I mean, just extraordinary amount of excitement and folks who want to take advantage of this transit opportunity.
And they're not doing that because it's nice or because it's civic-minded. They're doing that because that's where the market is telling them that the profits are.
Absolutely. And as employers move away from the old model of bringing their businesses to places where the CEO wants to live, instead now people are bringing their businesses where their talent will be, where their workforce, where they can get a very strong workforce and where their customer base is most readily available. And that's why I think you're seeing more and more companies mention and make sure that they have MARTA access before making those locational decisions. But I have to tell you, we're behind a bit. When you look at the folks in the regions who compete with the Atlanta market every day, they've made massive investments into mass transit. Dallas has built more light rail than any other place in the country over the last few years. Denver is building out an incredible array of multimodal uses, and even places like Los Angeles, long thought to be way behind as it relates to mass transit, are making billions of dollars of new investments into subways, bus rapid transit, and all sorts of other technologies that really put them in a competitive situation where Atlanta has to respond.
Well, on that competition front, we've also got internal competition here within the Atlanta region. We've got some folks who have access to MARTA who are reaping the benefits of it, and some parts of the region that don't. Do you see that internal regional competition becoming a driver of MARTA expansion in the future?
I do. I think part of what's occurring is that employers are voting with their feet to places that have great access, and that's certainly what we expect to see more and more of. And as this knowledge about the airport again gets more and more prevalent, I think you'll see more employers make those moves at and around those stations. But very exciting for us too is on the TOD side is that some of our TODs take care of themselves. Anything north of downtown does great, and so the developers are just all over it. But we now have a request for proposals out for our Oakland City station, and that will be the first southern station where we are working with the development community to create a very, very special place. And so over the next couple of months, we expect to get back some really good proposals and then see some things that will hopefully transform some of those areas that have had a tougher time at it, to transit be one of those catalyst opportunities.
Not just driving development, but redevelopment or revitalization of those areas.
Absolutely. And so we're expecting to see more and more of that.
Well, we got some more questions here. Our last question, does MARTA have any plans to do away with the 20-minute train intervals on the red and gold lines on the weekends?
One of the real that's an excellent question. One of the real challenges for our transit system is ongoing maintenance. When MARTA was built back in, when we opened as a rail system back in 1979, unfortunately, we did not build, the forefathers and foremothers of our system did not build pocket tracks and did not build capacity where we can effectively use train detours like you have in some of the other major subway systems. So the reason why we run 20-minute service on the weekends is because we have to maintain the service. We've had a stellar safety record. We want to continue that, and ongoing proper track maintenance and upkeep of our systems, our signal systems, and that sort of thing is absolutely a must. What we're going to try to do, though, in future years is to continue to improve headways even when we're single tracking, so that rather than a 20-minute wait on a single tracking Saturday afternoon, maybe we can get down to more 15 and 10-minute opportunities. And what we also try to do a good job with, though it continues to be a challenge, is to work very closely with the Convention and Visitors Bureau and others, so that when major events come into town and they happen to be on the weekend, we try to schedule most of the maintenance on the lower volume weekends. But as all of you know, Atlanta and this region is becoming hot every weekend. So there's very rarely a time when there aren't major conventions, major sporting activities, and just major, just other stuff that's happening in the downtown and in the area, so that no matter what weekend we pick, it's going to be a weekend that somebody wants to enjoy MARTA service. But we ask you to be patient with us, and improvements are on the way.
Well, it's a good problem to have a downtown that has so many cultural and sporting opportunities for folks to come to and to have a vibrant downtown. And it's certainly it's been an honor to have you with us this morning. It's just a tremendous story, the amount of change that you've been able to affect in 2 years, and we look forward to you having many more years here at MARTA to continue moving things in the right direction. And certainly if the Georgia Transportation Alliance can be of help in any way, shape, or form, we'll be more than happy to do that in any way that we can. Thank you all for participating in the call. Thank you all for submitting questions. Our next chat is next week, and we look forward to seeing you all then. This concludes our call. Thank you for being with us. Good day.